Ipsley Church Lane is in the southwest area of Redditch. It is adjacent to the Roman road Ignald Street, which is at the eastern end of the lane. The hilltop where the church stands has been occupied since the time of the ancient Britons, followed by the Romans, Saxons, Normans, right up until today. The Law Society stands behind St Peter's Church at Ipsley and is the site of Ipsley Court, which was built over the Great House that was constructed by the Huband family, who held the land for 650 years. This is the story of a contractor who was carrying out some work at the site.
In the 1990s, I was fitting an alarm and CCTV system at the Law Society at the back of Ipsley Church. Weeks later, we were called back as the alarms kept going off at night. We checked the alarms and all was fine. A few days later, we were called back again as the alarms kept going off. We checked everything and all seemed fine until just before we left. We were still in the security room when one of the alarms went off. We looked at the CCTV screen and saw the figure of what appeared to be a monk walking through the room with the said alarm. We watched him walk into the next room and the alarm went off for that room. This happened in 6 rooms.
The old rectory in Ipsley is built on the settlement where Earl Elgar lived in Anglo-Saxon times. Earl Elgar was the son of the famous Lady Godiva. In the 1800s, the property was completely rebuilt by the great-grandson of Christopher Wren into the beautiful building we see there today. At some point in history, the site was used as a monastery. Ghostly monks seem to be a common sighting in the area, as Katie recalls. Some years ago, after a night out in Redditch at a quite popular venue, my then boyfriend and myself were walking home. We lived in Matchborough at the time, so the easiest way for us to get home was via Arrow Valley Lake and Ipsley. As we started the ascent of Ipsley Church Hill Lane, we were startled by a goat that lived at one of the houses at the bottom of the lane. He was white, so in the darkness he looked pretty scary. We laughed about it and carried on our way. About halfway up the hill, we saw 2 cloaked figures approaching us. We moved to the side of the road so as to not be in their way. I remarked to my boyfriend, "They haven't got any feet." He said, "What? How creepy," and laughed. As we got closer to them, they just vanished. We were scared and ran to the top of the lane and didn't visit that area for a very long time after that. Over time, from roadworks and development, the road has become higher than it was a few hundred years ago, so the ghostly monks will be walking on the original level of the road as it was in their time. So not seeing the feet of the monks is plausible. To the west of the church is a conservation area with a walkway running through it. This is the account of a group of teenagers in the mid-1990s.
When we were kids, in the early 90s, a group of us used to walk around the lake when the evenings got dark early. We used to look for ghosts. We walked into the wooded area next to St Peter's Church, and at some point you come to a large clearing. We saw a big ball of blue light that flew past us, travelling at a high speed. Just afterwards, a really tall hooded figure came walking towards us. It was about 10 foot tall. We just ran away.
The earthworks of the remains of a deserted medieval settlement is to the west of the church. The nearby River Arrow would have been used for fishing. In the 1980s, 2 teenagers had the following experience.
Me and a mate used to camp opposite the graveyard as kids in the 80s. We wanted to see if the angel hovered around the church. But as we were going through the first entrance you get to, we looked to the right of us and saw a man wearing what seemed to be yellow waterproofs, like the fishermen wore years ago. We looked at each other and we instantly knew by the look on each other's faces that we both saw something that wasn't meant to be there.
During the development of the town, a Saxon fishing boat was found in the area of the man-made pond when the river was redirected. So Ipsley has a long history, longer than most people realise. So it's not a surprise that there are so many ghost sightings in the area.